Hello, and today we'll continue with A Fall from Grace. Cedric lifted up his gaze and realized he reached the stream and had been walking alongside it for the past 5 minutes. He let himself collapse on the soft grass, closing his eyes. What if Victor didn't apologize? What if he told Cedric his inner fears were true, that he wasn't fit for this life after all? The possibility of him leaving the bandits and returning to his hometown loomed in his mind. But that would mean returning to Life Center. He couldn't do that to himself. The other alternative was using the banditry skills he learned thus far to fend for himself and lead a solitary life. But that would mean never seeing Victor again, and Cedric loved him and knew there was nothing he could do to change that. He opened his eyes anew, glancing at the boughs of the trees above him, firmly silhouetted against the bright sky. He slowly breathed in and out, finally managing to clear his mind of the multitude of worrying thoughts that had been lingering within. It felt as if the only person existing in the universe at this precise moment was Cedric, were surrounded by the unmoving trees above and an eternal sky beyond him. The coyote remained lying where he was for a couple of hours, listening to the stream's chatter and forgetting everything else. Eventually he picked himself up with immense effort and trudged his way back to the camp. His feet felt like they were made of lead, getting heavier with each step he took. Upon arrival, he noticed the fox was still absent, and the place was unnervingly quiet. Hollis seemed to have tidied the plates the two had left behind them after their argument, as they were no longer anywhere in sight. He probably heard everything, Cedric thought to himself. Who knows what he made of it all? As he glanced around the camp, the coyote reckoned one thing he couldn't do was head back to his tent and wait there until Victor's return. However, another thought crossed his mind. He recalled Whitley's words the previous day. If there's ever anything on your mind, or if you ever need help with anything, I'm here to listen. Now seemed like the right moment to take the bear up on his offer. He didn't even feel like he needed to talk about Victor. Any subject would do, as long as it helped him take his mind off his troubles and feel better. Really was easy to talk to and gave Cedric the impression of being a wise and understanding person. Truth to be told, all he needed was someone who would listen, someone who perhaps could understand what he was going through, someone who could offer helpful advice in a moment of need. Cedric, the coyote jolted. The person who had gently called out his name was but a few feet behind him, and their accent had an upper-class twinge. He spun around, meeting the broad and imposing highness gaze. I'd like to talk to you. Please follow me to my tent. Cedric nodded without uttering a word. Dion hadn't given away any possible reason why he might want to have a conversation with him, but his tone seemed formal, or perhaps even worried. Whatever the reason, the coyote would find out soon enough. He silently followed the hyena's footsteps moving across the lonely camp and observing the white mist which had begun to envelop everything around him. The two entered Dion's tent, remaining silent as Cedric softly set himself down, the hyena wandering over to a small gold-leafed cabinet and pulling out a leather flask. Cedric hadn't yet had a chance to set foot in the bandit's leader's tent until now. As he took in his surroundings, he noticed just how much they matched Dion's personality. Many small prints and artist's sketches were displayed, sitting on a couple of ornate chests and propped up against the tent's fabric. The hyena's bed matched the appearance of those he'd seen in everyone else's tents at first sight. Upon closer inspection, the lack of a characteristically Dion-esque bed frame was made up followed by some beautiful Middle Eastern looking seats and a pair of colorful pillows with a Sicilian or Mediterranean pattern. An object that caught Cedric's eye was a chest that had been left open and that he could see contained what must have been at least 40 books. Lastly, his gaze drifted to an old poster advertising the production of a new play he must have dated back to Dion's days as an actor in his old theater company. Despite all this, the space wasn't cluttered, as each bandit still had to be practical and consider the option of having to pack everything up and move away at a moment's notice, though Cedric didn't wonder how on earth they all made do with Hollis's carriage for transporting the amount of chests he'd seen lying around. Care for a drink? The coyote leaned forward, nervously reaching for the flask he was being offered, and swallowed its contents without hesitating. Careful there, lad. That's whiskey you're downing. Some sputtering followed as Cedric tried to compose himself again and find behind her. He certainly wasn't making this situation any less embarrassing. Dion sat down on a creaky wooden chair opposite Cedric, crossed his hands and bending forward. At this precise moment, his expression was nigh impossible to read. His eyes were narrowed, his eyebrows curled, and his mouth almost a straight thin line. He really was huge, the coyote thought to himself, and right now, with the uncertainty of what he was about to say, downright intimidating. All Cedric was able to glean from Dion's mannerisms was that the bandit looked wrapped up in thought, carefully considering what he should say and how to convey it best. His heart began to beat faster, accompanied by a drop of sweat making its way down his forehead. Was this what he thought it might be? Was he actually going to be kicked out of the group? First of all, what's the name of that Fritz painter? You know, the one that specializes in those idyllic pastoral landscapes. Lots of green, pinks, blues. I saw his pieces hung around a number of estates the time my fellow thespians and I visited La Belle France. This was not what Cedric had been expecting. Still, it somehow managed to break the tension and help snap the younger bandit out of his silence. Fragonard, or something like that, the author of The Swing? Aye, Fragonard. That's the fellow. What about him? Well, there's a very curious detail I noticed. His paintings all suggest an idyllic view of nature in the countryside, a place where nobles can take refuge from the stifling ways of the court. It's escapism, except it's not quite that plain. There's always something occurring beneath the surface. Therein lies my point. There's always something you don't see, likewise in the dark areas of a Caravaggio painting. Cedric let out an internal sigh of relief upon realizing the hyena was starting to get carried away with a seemingly random topic of conversation as usual. This discussion was nothing to be nervous about. After all, the coyote wasn't in trouble and he wasn't being kicked out of the group. Yet he felt this really wasn't the right moment for whichever point Dion was trying to get at. More time alone to mull things over and decide what he did or didn't want to do. Even heading over to Whitley's tent to have a chat with the bear like it reasonably, the intendant sounded like a better solution than this pointless detour. He sprung to his feet much faster than he planned, unable to help himself despite his best efforts to avoid being impolite. Despite this, he wasn't being rude at all. He thought to himself he would certainly be happy to return to the hyena's tent to resume their chat later that day. I very much agree with you, Dion. It's quite a fascinating topic, though I think it might be best if we save it for later today. I just need to wander over to Whitley's to ask him something about. Sit down, lad. Dion raised his voice, his expression growing dead serious. This isn't about art or history. It's about you and it's about Victor. I didn't think you were beyond a metaphor. Cedric seriously crept down to his seat after being told off. The bandit leader crossed his hands, lowering his voice. It's not my place to interfere in your private matters. However, if you're to stay as a member of the masquerade for the near future, there are things it is pointless to keep hidden from you. The Victor you know nowadays is not your childhood friend. What do you mean? The coyote was even more puzzled at this remark. You both had your struggles and hard times, but life especially hasn't been kind to him since you two saw each other as young boys. You need to remember you've each missed out on around a decade of the other's life, and though you happily rekindled what had begun so long ago, you're both different compared to your younger selves. As so often happens, it might not feel that way to you, but you have years of experience, tons of happy and sad memories that the other has yet to learn about. This is something you both need to start acknowledging. It might be hard, I understand that, but you are not children. You need to remember you've each missed out on around a decade of the other's life, and though you need to remember you've each missed out on around a decade of the other's life, and though you've happily rekindled what had begun so long ago, you're both different compared to your younger selves. And so often happens, it might not feel that way to you, but you have years of experience, tons of happy and sad memories that the other has yet to learn about. This is something you both need to start acknowledging. It might be hard, and I understand that, but you are not children anymore. Vic is exceedingly good at putting on a mask when necessary, but this can be counterproductive, especially when relationships of any kind are concerned. Honestly, it's vital. Take it from me, and I hope that's something he will improve on thanks to you. Though you're not exempt from this either. You mustn't just be a one-sided effort. But why? But what was it? But what doesn't he want me to know? The hyena leaned back, unable to avoid being a little melodramatic even in this situation. Not my place to say, lad, except for any aspects which might involve me directly. The bandit cleared his throat. Such as favors. Oh, so many favors. He shook his head. I love the lad. There's no hiding it. He's clever, handsome, charismatic, and a brilliant thief. But as a bandit leader, when I'm offering something, I expect some form of compensation. That's what we were talking about on the second day of the trials, and that's why Victor was so enthusiastic about that masked ball we heard talked of in Hiddenstone. A heist on so big of a scale would mean he'd be able to pay me back completely. Oh, so many favors. He shook his head. I love the lad. There's no hiding it. He's clever, handsome, charismatic, and a brilliant thief. But as a bandit leader, when I offer something, I expect some form of compensation. That's what we were talking about on the second day of your trials, and that's why Victor was so enthusiastic about that masked ball we heard talked of in Hiddenstone. A heist on so big of a scale would mean he'd be able to pay me back completely. This debt, of course, is something he's no doubt kept hidden from you. Not for any malicious reason, of course, but simply to keep up that veneer of confidence and ease he has and ease he has on you. Any an ideal version of himself you see in him, and that he doesn't want to shatter. I've seen your positive influence on that rogue with my very eyes. It's almost uncanny. The Victor I first met was a broken and self-hating wreck by comparison. Dion smiled for the first time since their conversation first began. You make him happy, Cedric. He really loves you. You know, he never kept his memories of you hidden from anyone. There's a reason we'd all heard of his coyote childhood friend. There's no was, but when the time is right, speak to him. Let him know you're someone he can be close with and vulnerable. Oh, so many favors. He shook his head. A little lad, there's no hiding it. He's clever, handsome, charismatic, and brilliant thief. But as a bandit leader, when I'm offering something, I expect some form of compensation. That's what we were talking about on the second day of your trials, and that's why Victor was so enthusiastic about that mass ball we heard talk of in Henningstone. A heist on so big a scale would mean he'd be able to pay me back completely. This debt of his is something he no doubt kept hidden from you, not for any malicious reason, of course, but simply to keep up that veneer of confidence and ease he has around you. In an ideal version of himself you see in him, and that he doesn't want to shatter. I've seen your positive influence on that rogue with my very eyes. It's almost uncanny. The Victor I first met was a broken and self-hating wreck by comparison. Dion smiled for the first time since their conversation first began. You make him happy, Cedric. He really loves you. You know, he never kept his memories of you hidden from anyone. There's a reason we all heard of this coyote childhood friend. There's no was, but when the time is right, speak to him. Let him know you're someone he can be close and vulnerable with. I'm sure he'll realize the mistake he made earlier when confronting you. You know? Cedric was trying to ask how or if the hyena was familiar with the subject of his argument with the fox, but only managed a couple of words. The hyena replied with a wink. Hard to keep secrets with this lot. After a moment's silence, Cedric recalled the cause of his argument with Victor. About that, there are some things I won't do, and killing's one of them. I don't know where you or the other bandits stand on this matter, but it's not something I want to change about myself. And yes, I'm willing to argue about this. Just because other noblemen secretly engage in nefarious deeds in this country or overseas doesn't mean I have to act the same way. Besides, I'm not a nobleman anymore. This is a difficult subject. There's no way around it. Perhaps you may allow me to return to my earlier metaphor. There's always something you don't see. Each time any of us are getting a job done, we put on a show. It's all theater. But this kind of performance isn't just harmless fun. It comes with its risk. And of course, what each of us needs to consider is that at the end of the day, despite our best and noblest intentions, one of our victims might get hurt or killed. The willingness to engage with that amount of risk to a greater or lesser extent varies from each one of us. But as a general rule, we always want people's money. Seldom or ever do we want their life, despite what manner of wretched character we have before us. All I can ask you to do is to consider and come to terms with the fact that if you're willing to be one of us, which you have already proven most convincingly, you're going to end up hurting someone eventually. I know. But I don't like thinking about it this way. I must consider it at least. Still, as a bandit, I'm going to abide by my own rules. And my principal rule is to never set out to kill anybody if I can help it. He lifted his head again, looking directly at Dion. Yes, hurting someone as a bandit is inevitable, but I believe killing is not. You know, there's quite a charm about you, Cedric. You're alarmingly direct and sincere, as well as not being afraid to confront someone when the morals you live by are challenged. If this were a test, you would have passed it. Now it was Cedric's turn to smile at this statement. He replied teasingly, "What, are you also making advances on me? I had this happen yesterday already. You boys must be desperate." The coyote wasn't quite sure where the confidence with which he said those words came from, especially in a situation like this. Not that he minded. Dion burst out laughing and sat up from his chair confidently. Moving towards Cedric, he placed a hand beneath the coyote's chin. Keep up that energy, lad, and you'll get places with these merry men and their leader." He winked. "My tent's bed is always available. That's all I'll say." He then rested his large hand on the coyote's back as they both approached the tent's exit. "Talk things over with Vic. He'll patch things up, I'm sure. And you know I'm always here if you need me. It's my duty." Cedric smiled. "Thank you, John. And sorry for being snappy earlier. Au revoir." The hyena turned away, disappearing behind his tent's white fabric. Cedric was left standing alone in the misty campsite once again. The quietly murmuring sounds of the old forest were all that could be heard around him for almost miles on end. The conversation with Dion had gone differently to what he'd been expecting, but it somehow left him feeling hopeful. Still, it was hard for him to reconcile the fact that the Victor he loved and cared about so strongly would hide aspects of himself from Cedric, even though it was coming from a place of love and respect, nor that the Fox would consider taking anyone's life for that matter, despite the situation being more nuanced than he first thought. As much as he wished he didn't, that was still the main aspect that unnerved Cedric. Brushing the argument aside to avoid any further conflict seemed like the opposite of a good idea. He needed to properly discuss things with Victor again without getting heated so that they'd both fully understand each other's point of view. Wandering over to their tent, the coyote decided he'd have a lie down and wait for his partner to return. But what if he didn't return? Dion was right. Engaging in a dangerous heist comes with its risk. That goes without saying. What if he got hurt, or worse? He mentioned Blake was going to assist him. Hopefully the Doberman was wise enough to keep them both out of trouble. A bleaker thought began to slowly and unnervingly take shape. What if this fox chose not to return? Cedric realized in moments like these he felt he didn't know Victor as well as he wished he did. He had no idea what the bandit was capable of when upset. He almost threw himself on the bed and closed his eyes, trying to clear his mind of these troubling thoughts. Upon opening his eyes again, he noticed the light outside the tent had faded. He slept for what most had been at least a couple hours. I suppose I needed it. The atmosphere in the tent's interior almost felt soothing, a faint flicker of candlelight dancing upon the white fabric. Cedric's eyes widened. He hadn't lit any candles earlier, and that could only mean one thing. With a jump, he turned over to look away from the corner he'd been facing. Victor was sitting on a chair, twirling his pendant and staring at the ground nearby. He lifted his head as soon as he noticed Cedric's movement. "Hey, are you alright?" Cedric exhaled, trying his best to smile for the fox, despite not managing to look him in the face. "I'm alright." Victor was also unable to make eye contact and was looking away, setting his eyes on the jug and porcelain bowl they kept on the wooden chest. "How did it go? Did you and Blake manage the job?" "We didn't go through with it. Not after earlier. I just couldn't." The fox hung his head low again. "Cedric, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. Cedric felt strong emotions beginning to well up, his eyes dampened by tears. You have nothing to apologize for. It's on me. It always is. I can't get one fucking thing right in my life. The fox slammed his leg. The fox slammed his left leg down, lifting up a small cloud of dust when his boot hit the ground. V, darling, it's alright. Apologizing shows your inner strength. Lord knows many people I've met who have not been able to form an apology, even for the smallest things. It's ridiculous. I don't want to lose you, Cedric. Tears were streaming down the bandit's cheeks. I always put myself and my own needs before anyone else's, and never put myself in other people's shoes. I'm tired of not listening. I'm tired of making mistakes when I do things others have warned me not to do. I don't want to leave you behind. Not you too. Victor shook his fist, bending forward and speaking between sobs. Cedric got up from the bed and walked over to where his partner was sitting. He wanted to pull him in for the warmest embrace, but despite his best effort, he couldn't even lift the figure and stood frozen in his place, unable to make physical contact. The feeling of regret for what he said to Victor earlier had stung him and was growing stronger by the minute. I'm scared, Cedric. I'm scared of messing up and losing you. I've lost so much already. You were right. I'm a hypocrite. I've done so many things without consulting you. So many things that end up upsetting you. I did them thinking they'd make you happy, but I was only thinking about myself instead, as bloody usual. The fox's sobs grew fainter as he leant forward and buried his muzzle in Cedric's waistcoat. Upon feeling his partner's touch, and thereby knowing he had permission to return to affection, the coyote finally succeeded in lifting his arms and gently ran his hands along Victor's back without saying a word. As for that quaint monologue of mine, Victor chose his next words carefully. It is tough for me not to feel resentment towards the upper classes. I've seen what they've done to people like me, my family, and my friends. But you're different. You saw me, I was wrong. There's nuance in everything, even in this. Can you forgive me? Cedric sighed. I was wrong too. I was foolish of me. It was foolish of me to expect us to always see eye to eye on everything. We're not the same person. We each have our own thoughts and lived experiences. We're not even the same people we used to be a few years ago. Our own selves have a way of constantly shifting. I've been holding on to this image of our past for so long, it ended up clouding my judgment. Worst of all, I've been holding you to the standard of who I remember you to be, instead of who you are. I don't want to disappoint you. The coyote kept speaking, unable to focus on anything but wording his own thoughts as well as he could manage. I want to let go of all that and get to know you, Victor. I remember who you were, but I need to learn who you are right now. And same goes for me. I want you to get to know me and everything about me, including all the mistakes and stupid life decisions I made. Dion was right. We're not children anymore. When did he say that? Victor's voice was still faint. He asked me to have a talk with him earlier and managed to knock some sense into me. A moment of silence followed as the fox took a deep breath, lifting his head and slowly moving away from Cedric. He's right. I need to stop forcing myself to act a certain way, to be who my mind tells me I once was. If I truly love you, I need to be open with you, as do I, instead of expecting you to behave a certain way. We can't just solve everything and smooth things out instantly, but we can take the first of many steps towards being happier together and working better as a couple. Victor nodded, resting his head on his right hand and closed his eyes for a few seconds. Cedric took a few steps back, sitting down on the soft bed again. I'd like to learn more about what happened during the time we spent apart. If you're comfortable explaining some of it to me, and it doesn't have to be right now, of course, it's alright. There's one thing I think you ought to know in particular. Before I met the rest of the masquerade, I knew someone else, as in another bandit, though of course the jobs we got up to then were nothing compared to what I or any of you would be able to pull off nowadays. We were very close, though I don't think I could call it more than friendship. It felt very different to what you and I have now. But still, there was a strong bond between us, and we swore we'd get through hard times together. His name was Vess. He gave me the strength to keep going after losing my family. It was a connection I was desperately in need of at that moment. And it helped, it really did. I don't know where I could have ended up if I hadn't met him by chance. But as much as I appreciated, our bond didn't last. As time went on, we began to drift apart, and despite sharing the same hideout and still planning our robberies together, feelings grew colder between us. Then one day, a whiskey heist we planned started turning ugly. I could see no way out of it for both of us, but all I knew was I didn't want to end up behind bars a second time. We were in a small Manson cellar, and I was just about to climb out of the window. That's when a couple of guards appeared behind us, chasing after Vess as he ran behind me. I managed to get out and turn around to lend him a hand, only to see more guards outdoors on my left heading for me. If I managed, if I made a quick run for it, I would have caught them, but I was surprised to manage a quick getaway. I didn't have time to think. It all happened so quickly. I wish this wasn't so hard to talk about. He took another deep breath before resuming his story. The next thing I knew, I was safe and I was alive, but I left another person behind. I'd abandoned him. Upon seeing him on the verge of tears again, Cedric picked out the handkerchief tucked in his waistcoat, handed it to Victor, much like the fox had done the evening the two lovers first shared a kiss. Vince gifted me the pendant. I still wear it to this day. That's all I have left. I keep it as a reminder, not as to what could have been, but as to hold myself accountable for what I'd done. If he managed to avoid the gallows and make it out of jail one piece, he'd probably kill me so he set eyes on me again. I know our relationship is different, but I have this fear that what happened with him might happen with you, albeit not in the same way. I wouldn't even have anything to remember you by. I lost that chess piece like an idiot, the one you gifted me when we set off on our journey. And Coyote shook his head in an attempt to reassure Victor this detail wasn't a big deal. Never mind about that, it's alright. Before meeting the others, I was afraid I'd never be able to build a connection with other people without somehow managing to break it or sour it eventually. That's why I tried so hard not to let you down. I'm just worried there's not much of me beneath the surface. V, it's alright, seriously. All we can do is learn from these experiences. We both messed up, now it's up to us to mend things together. We'll start again tomorrow. Victor managed a timid smile. It feels quite surreal, but I'm glad I've told you this. Thank you for sharing it with me. Despite how tough this whole conversation had been, it had left Cedric feeling hopeful. This wasn't going to be as smooth as he assumed at first, but this was a road they were both willing to travel. After a little while, Victor pitched the idea of an evening walk, while Cedric gladly accepted after having spent most of the day sitting or lying down. They quietly set off and followed the stream near the camp, gradually leaving the area they'd grown familiar with behind. They let the sound of the watercourse guide them on their journey, taking the opportunity to fill a couple of flasks they'd chosen to carry with them. The dark shades of the ancient trees While reminded Cedric of warm and friendly guides accompanying the lovers on their way along the wood's hidden paths. Almost primordial about this night walk. It filled the coyote with the same wild impression he felt when riding back to the camp the prior evening, that letting go of who he was and being at one with the landscape surrounding him. It was as if he had, it was as if he and the rest of the masquerade belonged here, hidden in the murk and gently flowing in the wild like the boughs of a secular willow, just one of the wood's countless secrets that would be lost to time. The breeze rustled against his fur, murmuring on its way and blending in with nature's own sounds, with nature's other sounds, creating a sweet music that animals of Cedric's kind could only attempt to recreate without even coming close to original. The coyote swore he could hear actual music now, the sound of a distant piper echoing between the hills and tree trunks. It was a sweet, melancholy tune, quite unlike anything he ever heard in a tavern, a theater, or even a Bible. It was as if the tune itself had sprung up from the soil, just as all the plants around him had. He wanted to open his mouth and speak to Victor just to ask the fox if he could hear it too, but he wasn't able to. He knew once he did so, the sorcerer's notion would evaporate, vanishing as rapidly as it had appeared. No, he wanted to experience this for a little longer, even just a moment would feel like enough. He turned to look at Victor walking beside him. Was this even still Victor? The moon had disappeared behind some thick clouds, and he couldn't quite make the fox's shape out in the dark. But he could feel his presence near him, and he hadn't a trace of fear. This was the Victor he knew, the Victor he felt safe with. The boughs surrounding them, were shaped like thick curtains shielding them from the outside world. Maybe this was all an illusion, an otherworldly vision, the work of benevolent woodland spirits watching over him, keeping him safe. The ground they were treading on was beginning to rise, and the two quickened their pace excitedly, waiting to reach the top of this hill they only just discovered. They soon felt the terrain level out as a bright moon reappeared in the night sky. Victor brushed the leaf curtains aside, revealing a breathtaking view of the surrounding landscape concealed behind him, stretching far out towards the horizon as the eye could see. The sight of the rolling hills, the dark forests, the picturesque villages, and distant pathways was overwhelming. For a moment, none of it even felt real. Cedric was reminded of the evening he and the fox had walked on the rooftops of the houses neighboring the bandits' hideout in their old town. He felt lucky and privileged to be in that spot at that time. He and Victor held hands as they gazed outwards. This is something I'm not going to forget for a long, long time. Victor smiled. I already know I'm going to look back on this moment. I just wish I had some parchment and charcoal. I asked you to sketch this landscape for me. The coyote pondered the idea. I'm not sure. I feel like it would lose its magic that way. Perhaps you're right. We'll just have to hold it in our thoughts as a memory. I like the memories of all those sweet summer days we spent together. Cedric was unable to restrain himself from speaking his mind as a wave of nostalgia hit him. If only I could go back to them, even just for a moment. The fox shook his head. That's wishful thinking, my dear. You said it yourself earlier. There's no changing or recreating the past. That's the reason we end up dwelling on it so much. Too much. To the point we might end up remembering what was never real in the first place. All that has been, both good and bad. If you try to view that in a positive light, it can be quite encouraging, I feel. You are right. What we need to focus on right now is moving forward and together and getting to know each other anew, including all our similarities and differences. I'm sorry for getting carried away. I promise I'll do my best for both of us. The couple gently held hands, gazing at the rolling hills surrounding them. I promise to. The two stood there a while, allowing the cool evening breeze to gently blow their fur. This moment like all the ones previous, wouldn't last forever. It was better to cherish it while it was there. It was still was. While it still was. Okay. Victor took a deep breath before turning around, ready to head back down here again. Cedric soon followed, though not without glancing at the landscape one last time. He could already feel the magic growing fainter as they both made the way back to the camp, listening out for the sound of the stream. You reckon anyone else have ever stood in that spot besides us? If only trees could talk, my dear. Cedric chuckled before growing thoughtful as he recalled all they just experienced. One day we should return to this forest and seek that hill out again. I like that idea. They soon reached the stream, which led them back to more familiar ground after about 20 minutes. Despite it being such a peaceful late night walk, Cedric was still relieved to see the friendly shape of their tent growing closer and closer, since his feet were beginning to give in with the night. I have a feeling I'm going to sleep very well. Victor yawned loudly. As am I, darling. As am I, darling. The sound of branches snapping along with some muffled voices reached Cedric's ears just as the fox was heading inside their loggings. V, did you hear that? A drowsy voice answered from within. Hear what? The coyote whispered. It sounds like there could be someone nearby. Are you sure your mind isn't just playing tricks on you? It's been quite a day, after all. I know I heard something. One option here contains adult content. If you prefer to skip these, please select the SFW option. Could you do me a huge favor and go have a look, just to put my mind at ease, V? As you wish, though I really don't think it's anything to worry about. I'll take my pistol with me, just in case. Thank you so much, and please be careful with that. I'll keep an ear open until you return. Victor picked up his belt from the rickety chair. He started leaving his clothes on while undressing. There's an ambulance out here. Victor picked up his belt from the rickety chair. He started leaving his clothes on while undressing. I'm sure it's nothing. I hope so. The fox stepped outside and sat himself down on the bed, unbuttoning his jacket and waistcoat. A few minutes later, he heard the fox's footsteps nearing the tent and caught a glimpse of Victor's silhouette. Everything's all right. The coyote set foot outside to inquire in case the fox had seen something, only to notice he had the naughtiest grin on his face, especially for Blake and Whitley. What do you mean? Oh, I see. Cedric shook his head. It didn't take him long to realize what the fox had meant by that. Those whores, get a room. Or a tent, more like. The couple laughed fondly, embracing each other. Upon entering their tent, Cedric downed more than half of one of the flask the two had filled with water. He was ready for a good night's sleep. I'll see you in the morning, V. I love you too, Cedric. The coyote smiled. I love you too. I look forward to spending more time with you, and whatever fate throws our way. We'll deal with it together. He hugged Victor, giving the fox a quick, goodnight kiss before lying down. Closed his eyes and falling into a deep slumber in a matter of seconds. Hey, so Santa thought that what's the bear's name? I keep forgetting his cattle's name, but anyway, he thought the bear was the one who would give him the advice, but it turns out it was the big hyena. I keep forgetting all their names, but anyway, so the leader, the bandit leader, the big hyena, he told Cedric about the fact that they're not the same as they were years ago. That they're different people now. They went through a lot of experiences while they were away from each other. And that they need to reconnect and get to know each other again. So, I mean, Cedric is learning that he's not that Victor is not the same person that he was when they were kids. And he's more, I mean, after being out for 10 years, he is more likely to commit murder if that's what it takes for him to survive. And Cedric very much is against murder. And he didn't think Victor would go to being like that. He didn't think Victor would go that far and towards murdering people and being willing to murder people like it's not that big of a deal. But I'm pretty sure like over the years that the two of them have been away from each other, Victor have had to survive, and that this is the only way he can survive. So yeah, so in case y'all were wondering, the Doberman and the Sun Bear, they were having sex out in the forest. So just want to give y'all heads up. I mean, y'all can download the game and play that scene for yourselves. So yeah. So thank y'all very much for watching. Goodbye.